There was once a Sith Lord so dangerous, so relentless, that it took the combined might of the entire Jedi High Council to destroy him. Picture the scene: a battlefield soaked in blood and strewn with bodies. The broken shells of Pau'an warriors lying among the corpses of dead Jedi. Standing at the center of this graveyard is a single figure, his armor shattered, his body broken, his lightsaber trembling in his hand. His breaths are ragged, his skin pale and streaked with ash and blood, and yet, he refuses to kneel. Before him, the greatest gathering of Jedi the galaxy had ever seen ignites their sabers as one. The entire Jedi High Council, united, standing together against a single Sith Lord, facing down Darth Desolous, the Desolate One. But to understand how a single Pau'an could bring the Jedi Order to this point of desperation, we must first understand who he was, and what he became. Greetings lore junkies back to the archives, we've been expecting you, and today we will be discussing Darth Desolous, one of the greatest Jedi killers of all time, a Sith Lord who faced the entirety of an ancient Jedi High Council all at once. But to understand Darth Desolous, we have to go back to the beginning, before he was a Sith. Before he was known as the Destroyer, he was known as the Sword of the Jedi. Long before his name became a curse in the halls of the temple, Desolous was a Jedi Master who was renowned. Born a Pau'an around the year 3522 BBY, he was unlike many of his peers in the Jedi Order. Where others sought wisdom, diplomacy, or meditation, he sought something else. He sought combat. To him, battle was not a distraction or a temptation, it was the purest form of truth. Through conflict, the Jedi revealed who they really were. Through combat, peace would be secured. It was through the lightsaber, not the council chambers, that the galaxy could be protected. His peers may have whispered about this obsession, but when the galaxy called for champions, the Jedi always sent him. To Outer Rim sieges, to battlefields where Jedi had fallen, to hopeless missions where no knight could ever hope to prevail. And again, he returned victorious. Impossible tasks, unthinkable victories, unimaginable odds, all achieved through his lightsaber and his will. To his mind, he was the Jedi Order's greatest weapon. He was the sword of the Jedi, and he lived to be wielded against the enemies of peace. Desolous was not outcast in these early years. He fought beside his brothers, trained apprentices, built bonds within the Jedi Order. To many, he was admired for his courage and his willingness to go where others would not. To some, he was feared, for the way his eyes lingered too long on the thrill of battle, for the way he seemed alive when crossing blades. But still, he was theirs, a Jedi, their sword, and he gave them his entire being. There was nothing of him outside of the Order. His very identity was consumed by service, which is why what came next would utterly break him. The whisper of the dark side. It began with curiosity, in hidden texts, in forbidden whispers. Desolous found himself drawn to Sith lore, not because he sought to betray the Order, but because he believed that it would sharpen him further. The Sith did not shy from combat, they glorified it, worshipped it even. They embraced the hunger for conflict that the Jedi feared. At first, Desolous told himself he studied their teachings for noble intents. If he could become stronger, more skilled, more unstoppable, then he could protect the Jedi and the galaxy all the better. The dark side whispered to him not of betrayal, but of perfection. But there was always signs. His duels grew more ferocious, his victories more brutal. Whispers reached the council, and soon, the truth was revealed. The council did not seek to redeem him. They did not look deeper into his motives. They did not see the man who had bled and triumphed for them. They only saw the danger that he now represented. And so, without hesitation, they cast him out. In that moment, his galaxy collapsed. Every bond he had built, every life he had trusted, every brother he had fought beside, severed all in an instant. The Order that he had given everything to had now abandoned him. And for a man who had lived as nothing but the Jedi sword, there was nothing left. He was hollow, alone. His heart was desolate. Sadness quickly turned to anger, like gas igniting. His pain became fury. His loneliness became hatred. If the Jedi had hollowed him out, then he would hollow them in return. If they had cast him aside, then he would make them bleed until they could never forget his name. And so he shed the name of the Jedi Master that he had once been, and he called himself Darth Desolous, the Desolate One. Unlike other Sith, he did not dream of an empire. He did not hunger for the throne. His purpose was singular: vengeance. He would become the greatest Jedi killer the galaxy had ever seen. But first, he would need an army. When Desolous fell, he did not raise an army of Sith apprentices. He did not gather warlords or schemers from the shadows. Instead, he returned home to his own people, to the Pau'ans. And it was here where his vengeance became something more sinister. The Pau'ans had always been disciplined, sharp, calculating, but under Darth Desolous they became something else entirely. He twisted their culture into an instrument of war. He promised them strength, pride, and vengeance against the Jedi who had scorned them, and they followed him, not because he wielded the Force, but because of his charisma, his fury. His command bent them to his will. What he gave them was training, not the training of Jedi, but the training on how to kill Jedi. Desolous's greatest advantage was not his lightsaber, it was his intimate knowledge of the Jedi Order. He knew how they fought, he knew how they moved, what they trusted, and where they hesitated. And now, he taught those secrets to his people. Pau'an soldiers drilled relentlessly in the arts of precision, formation, and ambush. They learned not to fight as individuals, but as a coordinated machine, a living extension of Desolous. He turned ordinary beings into slayers of Jedi. This was a corruption unlike any other Sith had attempted. He did not just corrupt himself, he corrupted his entire culture. But he had a secret. Desolate was not finished. In Sith holocrons, relics of an older age, he uncovered something forbidden, something designed for one purpose: the destruction of the Jedi. What Desolous discovered was Cortosis, an ore so rare, so dangerous, that even a glancing strike would short out a lightsaber. The weapon that defined the Jedi Order for millennia could be made useless in an instant. For Desolous, this was revelation. This was vengeance made physical. He forged Cortosis into shields and spears, placing them in the hands of his Pau'an soldiers. Suddenly, they were no longer just disciplined fighters. They were terrors from a Jedi nightmare. Against Jedi who trusted their lightsabers, they were unstoppable. The first time Desolous revealed this weapon, the galaxy trembled. A Jedi strike team met his forces on a remote world. Confident, the Jedi ignited their lightsabers. They advanced with assurance, blades blazing as they had for centuries. And then, their sabers flickered, died. One by one, their weapons sputtered out as Cortosis shields caught them. For the Jedi, this was unthinkable. Their most sacred weapon extinguished in their hands. And in a moment of shock, Desolous's soldiers surged forward, cutting them down. Survivors spoke of horror, of Jedi disarmed, forced to fight barehanded, swarmed by warriors trained specifically to kill without mercy. The battle marked the beginning of a nightmare that would stretch across the galaxy, the Invisible War. And from that moment on, Desolous unleashed terror. He did not fight in the open, he struck from the shadows. His armies became raiders, phantoms, executioners, ambushes on remote outposts, hit-and-run raids on convoys, deceptions that lured Jedi strike teams into kill zones. Every tactic designed not just to kill a Jedi, but to humiliate them, to strip away their pride, their faith, and their strength. Nearly 2,000 Jedi fell in this invisible war. The Jedi Order, which had once looked upon him as their greatest sword, now bled from wounds that he inflicted. Each massacre spread fear. Each ambush whispered his name. Desolous became not a man, but a shadow haunting the Jedi. And still, he refused to yield. Every Jedi killed was to him one more act of vengeance. Every Jedi grave was a monument to his fury. He was not building an empire. He was not planning a throne. He was worshipping combat, worshipping himself, dragging the Jedi into desolation with him. And in the Jedi's desperation, they made a plan. The Jedi are not easily broken. For every Jedi Knight who fell, for every Jedi Master who perished, the Order watched and learned. And at last the Council realized the truth. Piecemeal battles would only bleed them dry. Strike teams would never stop Desolous. Ordinary Jedi could not face him. Desolous had to be cornered. He had to be drawn into a trap. And so the Council devised a plan. They placed a small Jedi force on the remote world of Yaga Minor, vulnerable, isolated, seemingly exposed. To Desolous, it was irresistible. Another slaughter waiting to happen. Another victory that would etch his vengeance deeper into history. Darth Desolous took the bait. The trap at Yaga Minor. When Desolous descended on Yaga Minor, he believed it would be another victory, another massacre to add to the tally. His army struck swiftly, crashing into the Jedi defenders with terrifying precision. Cortosis shields caught sabers, Pau'an spears pierced defenses, and the Jedi fell in the opening charge. For a moment, it looked as though the same nightmare that had played out across dozens of worlds. But this time something was different. The air above the battlefield shuddered, hyperspace ruptured, and then, from the void, a Jedi fleet erupted, surrounding the planet in every direction. Star cruisers and carriers lit the skies with fire as reinforcements descended to the surface. The trap had been sprung. Desolous and his Pau'an warriors were cut off. There would be no retreat, no escape. And so began the carnage. The battlefield descended into chaos. Wave against wave of Jedi surged against his Pau'an formations. Cortosis shields clashed with lightsabers, spears drove into Jedi lines, and bodies piled high on both sides. Desolous himself carved a path of destruction, through Jedi masters and knights alike, his fury and hatred giving him strength even as exhaustion began to gnaw at him. But for every Jedi who fell, 2 more appeared. The trap was working. The Order had committed everything to ending the Sith here, and one by one, the Pau'ans were slaughtered. Shield lines broken, spearmen crushed beneath Jedi counterattacks. Desolous's army, the culture he had twisted into his personal weapon, was ground into the dirt. Until at last, there were no soldiers left. There was only Desolous. And then, the Council descended. He stood alone amid a graveyard of Jedi and Pau'ans, his body broken, his armor shattered, his breathing ragged, but still his saber burned in his hands. His hatred kept him upright. And then, the final horror arrived. The Jedi High Council descended onto the battlefield. All of them, not envoys, not a handful of masters. The entire council unified in one place. This was unprecedented. The Order had decided that no more Jedi would die to this monster, that they themselves would stand together, shoulder to shoulder, and end Desolous once and for all. For the Jedi, it was unity incarnate, the physical embodiment of their entire order brought against one man. The final stand of the Desolate One. Desolous looked upon them. He did not kneel. Bloodied, battered, broken, he still raised his lightsaber. His body may have been failing, but his hatred burned hotter than ever. He roared his vengeance into the storm and charged. The High Council met him as one. Their lightsabers ignited in perfect unison, their movements bound together by the Force itself. For the first time in centuries, the Council fought not as individuals, but as a single organism. And still, Desolous endured. He clawed, looking for every opening, using every inch, every lesson he had learned. His obsession with combat and his hatred pushed to its limits. For hours it was said that the battle raged. Desolous, the Desolate One, striking with the fury of the betrayal that he had experienced. His blade clashed against the greatest Jedi of the era, each strike fueled by the memory of exile, by the loneliness that hollowed him out, by the pain of the bonds severed. He fought like a man who had nothing left, because he didn't. Every strike was a scream of rage against the Order that had abandoned him. Every parry a curse against the brothers who had cast him aside. But hatred alone cannot last forever. His body weakened, his strength bled away, his armor cracked and fell, his strikes grew slower, his breathing heavier, and then at last, the Council struck. A single devastating blow of unity. Darth Desolous fell not to one Jedi, not to 10, but to an entire ancient Jedi Council together, as one. The Desolate One was finally dead. Unlike Sidious, unlike Exar Kun, unlike Darth Bane, Desolous left behind no empire, no dynasty, no throne. His legacy was one of terror, one of unity. The Jedi remembered him not as a Sith Lord to glorify, but as a lesson. The time the Jedi High Council had stood together as one against the embodiment of vengeance. His image was preserved in the Jedi Trials. There, Padawans would face a simulacrum of the Desolate One, forced to confront their own fears, just as the Council had once confronted his rage. Even centuries later, the name Desolous lingered as a curse. Darth Desolous, the Desolate One, the Jedi's abandoned sword, who turned his fury against them, and who required the United Order itself to destroy. A broken warrior, his body failing, his lightsaber still burning in his hand, and before him, the Jedi Council igniting their lightsabers in unison. In that moment, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. The purest embodiment of the dark side's vengeance facing the purest embodiment of Jedi unity. Darth Desolous was remembered not for what he built, but for what he destroyed. He was remembered not for conquest, but for slaughter. He was one of the greatest Jedi killers the galaxy had ever known, one of the greatest warriors, a man who corrupted his people, who armed them with nightmares, and who carved his name into history through blood. The Desolate One, and his story stands as both a warning and a lesson that even the greatest darkness can be overcome when the Jedi stand together as one. And so guys, that was the story of Darth Desolous. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Sith Lord that faced down an entirety of a Jedi High Council at once? His ultimate fall to the dark side, embrace of the Sith way, and embrace of combat. Also, are the Jedi to blame here? Or should the blame fall on Desolous' shoulders alone? As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.